Hey there, everybody. Here is my Steel Cage match pick for MMOG's League. The holdover in between Season 2 and Season 3. That way, all of the people get to play with their new toys. Snapcaster Mage, Laboratory Maniac, Witchbane Orb, possibly Stony Silence. I have a green, white, black hate deck here. And the theory behind the deck is that I will know my opponent's entire list before the game starts, which means that I have a high incentive to run as many different bullets as I can. But because I'm not running blue for card draw, I'm going to run green for Worldly Tutor to find all of my bullets. Let's start off with the mana base. We've got 2 Savannah, a Plains, 2 Scrubland, a Swamp, 2 Bayous, and a Forest, and then 5 fetch lands that find all of these different lands. So we have a pretty solid mana base, and we get to find basics against Ghost Quarter. We get to have basics against Wasteland. Strip Mine, Strip Mine still does what Strip Mine does. Speaking of Strip Mine and Wasteland, we've got those two, all 5. And then our mana acceleration is 3 Mox Diamonds and 3 Noble Hierarchs. I originally had 4 Mox Diamonds, but with only 19 lands, it was really close. Sometimes I would draw 2 lands in my opening hand, get rid of one to a Mox Diamond, and then never find another land. But the ability to play a turn 2 1-drop is pretty good. Noble Hierarch is just a little bit of extra acceleration. Honestly, she might be better as a Birds of Paradise, but finding black mana, especially with Mox Diamond, isn't as hard as you think it would be, and the Exalted is actually a pretty big deal. So, even though Noble Hierarch's a creature, and she can actually attack for 1 if she's on the board by herself, we lump her into our mana. So we've got a total of 25 mana sources. And then we go into our tutor suite. We've got 4 Worldlies, Vampiric, Imperial, and Demonic. So we have 6 1-drop tutors so that we can find the right guy to drop on turn 2 versus the whatever deck we're facing. And then Demonic Tutor is, Demonic Tutor. These 3 also help us find our spells that aren't creatures. So for our disruption, we've got 4 Thoughtseize, 3 Swords to Plowshares, and Croson Grip. Thoughtseize is good against everything except for Dredge, which, sometimes you have cards that are dead. You can't have every card you play be good against all 5 major archetypes. Otherwise, that deck would be the best deck in the format. Croson Grip is an uncounterable way to get rid of Oath of Druids. It's a little expensive if you're trying to kill workshop things, but it does blow up Oath of Druids, and it says, Oath of Druids, you're going home, because nobody runs Counterbalance. After that, we've got our creature package. We start off with a full playset of Dark Confidant, because drawing cards is amazing, and our curve is so low that Dark Confidant is rarely going to hurt us significantly over the course of a game. If we take a look at our stats, what's our average cost? Oh, it went away. Analysis. It doesn't have an average cost. Mana curve. There it is. Average cost. 1.6. So that means that every 2 turns we'll take 3 damage on average. That's not bad. And filling our hand is amazing. I've talked so much about Dark Confidant and why he's just fantastic. Hopefully I can win some rounds with him and show you how fantastic he is here too. Following that up, we've got the only other guy that is more than a 1-of in Qasali Pridemage. And the reason he is more than a 1-of is because Oath of Druids is a real deck, and when we're playing creatures, we have to make sure that we can stop Oath of Druids. Qasali Pridemage is probably the best card in the format at stopping Oath of Druids, so we're running it. We also have a Leonin Relic Warder, which gets rid of Oath. It gets rid of a Workshop card. It gets rid of Blightsteel Colossus. It gets rid of a Time Vault piece. And War Priest of Thune, which is primarily just for Oath. I mean, it can grab Fastbond, but we don't have Aether Vial. If they play Fastbond, the damage is going to be done. We have a mini Dredge package, since that is the next scariest deck. Dredge is actually scarier than Oath is, but most of the time, Oath is played more than Dredge is. I don't know. This past event, there were 5 Dredge decks, though, so I'm not sure. But we've got a Scavenging Ooze, which is also pretty decent in the Fish matchup. He can get big. He takes out key cards. And he also screws up Yawgmoth's Will. So he's pretty versatile duder. And then we've got a Yixla Jailer, which is the second best way to screw over Dredge. We've got our little singleton package here of random let's hate the format and screw you over cards. These are my griefer cards. I've got an Aven Mind Sensor, which turns off fetch lands. Pretty backbreaking if you can play it in response to a fetch land or a tutor. We've got an Ethersworn Canonist that turns off Tendrils and Gush decks. Doesn't do much against workshops, but we can't have everything. Kentucky's War Wage does some stuff against workshop decks, though. And also, with our land destruction package, he's not too bad at keeping Blue Mage's mana tied up when they're relying on Soul Rings and Lotus Petals and such when you're blowing up their lands. We've got a Gadok Teague, speaking of Blue Mages. He turns off Gush, he turns off Force of Will, he turns off Tendrils and Mind Desire, he turns off Dread Return. A lot of things this guy does. Jace, Tezzeret, he's pretty decent. And then we have a Phyrexian Revoker. This is primarily against Planeswalkers. Sure, you might grab it in the Storm matchup and hit LED, but the reason I put him in here was basically Jace the Mind Sculptor. He also hits Time Vault, Voltaic Key, other Planeswalkers. And then we've got a tiny, tiny Stoneforge Mystic package. The initial reason I added Stoneforge Mystic, I already had Umezawa's Jits. But then I decided, if this is so important in the Fish matchup, which it is, then having Stoneforge to tutor it up seems amazing. And so we've got Stoneforge, 4 Worldly Tutors, and 3 Black Tutors. That's 8 cards, and then the 2 Jits. We are theoretically running 10 Umezawa's Jits versus aggro decks. And then versus control decks, we are theoretically running 10 Batterskulls. Batterskull is the only card in the deck that I am not sure if it belongs. I added him in the 11th hour and figured there'd be no better way to test him than to just try him. But I feel like he would be pretty good versus decks with little to no removal. You can tutor up Stoneforge and then play Stoneforge, tutor up Batterskull. Chances are they're not going to remove Stoneforge Mystic because they can't. And then you drop down a 5 or a 4/4 lifelinking Vigilant guy. He can do some damage. Not only is he pretty big, with Exalted he can get through Tarmogoyfs, and he can help you race against a Blightsteel Colossus, believe it or not. Bringing up the sideboard is our Dredge Hate with 4 Leylines and 3 Yixla Jailers. On top of our 2 main deck guys, this gives us 9 plus 4 and 3, 7. This gives us 16 main deck answer cards to Dredge. Now, if you lose the die roll, turn 1 Worldly Tutor for turn 2 Yixla Jailer is probably too slow. But hopefully you can roll out with a Leyline to start. We've got 2 Krosan Grips and a Nature's Claim versus Oath of Druids. And this is, unfortunately, I get to see their lists, and unfortunately they get to see my lists. So Krosan Grip is not going to be a surprise to the Oath pilots, but they still can't deal with it. So they need to attack my mana before they can resolve Oath if they expect it to stay on the table. Nature's Claim is definitely good against workshop decks. Krosan Grip might be. I'm not exactly sure about that. It seems like it might cost too much with a sphere or 2 in play. We'll see if we get there. And then we've got a Gadok Teague, and 2 more Kataki's War Wage, just to help us naturally draw them in the appropriate matchups. And then Diabolic Edict can come in versus Oath of Druids, as well as fish decks to help us, get rid of their guys. Diabolic Edict is equally as good at getting rid of Emrakul, Blightsteel Colossus, or Tarmogoyf. That's the deck. Hopefully you guys won't hold it against me if I recycle the deck tech for Penguin TV. If I can score at least a 2-1 record in the Steel Cage match, I will most likely put this up. I think the deck looks fun. I can't wait to try it out and see how it works out with the tutors and complete knowledge of their lists. Enjoy the rest of the podcast.